course upon Bhagavad Gita. And this could be maybe like one of the greatest achievement or the best step of your own welfare, what you actually did it. And registering yourself for 18 days, 18 chapter Bhagavad Gita course. And just last week, we had one session upon introduction of Bhagavad Gita. So it's quite very phenomenal that in 18 days, 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, we are going to learn. And so many things are going to come. We will one by one in every chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So for Bhagavad Gita is quite very famous, universal book. And it will become a very wonderful experience for all of us to learn this Bhagavad Gita one by one. So there are 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita, and all those teachings and lessons of Bhagavad Gita we are going to know very systematically, and we have quite sufficient time also with us, that so that we can digest the teachings of Bhagavad Gita nicely. So I request all of you that I'll in between I'll keep asking for some responses from all of you. Please be ready to respond, as well as when it is not required for responding, then please keep yourself muted, and then we'll go ahead. So I'll just quickly going to share with you all the PPT that you are just seeing some minutes before. Yeah. So this is the 18 days, 18 chapter. So this particular course is also going parallelly in other languages, specifically Hindi. And this day, specifically Monday, is quite very active day, supposed to because now we are almost still in lockdown. So still I'm very fortunate to have all of you here. So this chapter is called Observing the Army. Okay, so as we know, this Bhagavad Gita is a part of a very big book, a very big epic called Mahabharata, right? And this is Mahabharata. This Mahabharata is not just a mythological book, but it's not just a religious book, but this is actually the history of the world. Mahabharata means the great Bharat, the Bharat which is so great, and the history of that great Bharat is called Mahabharata. So before its name was Jaya also. So in that Mahabharata, which constitutes of 1 lakh slokas, in that 1 lakh slokas, there are different types of rituals, there are different types of philosophy, there are different types of dharmas has been discussed. And there are 700 slokas into that 1 lakh slokas, which is celebrated throughout the whole universe, and which is actually acting as a guide for the whole humanity. And those most celebrated 700 slokas is nothing but Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So this is 700 slokas from whole of the Vedic conglomerate, which is just for all of us to very nicely to hear and to know about, and very nicely composed by Supreme Godhead himself in the form of Gita or the song. Okay, so in this today's discussion, we shall have this particular 4 things. Introduction, for whom is this Bhagavad Gita actually? Third, we'll have chapters contents, then at last chapter summary. Okay, so let's go ahead. So as I already told you, Bhagavad Gita is an invaluable gift to the humanity. Means that value cannot be given. It's such a great gift to the whole humanity. When humanity just gets over with so many different types of activities, different types of thinking, philosophy, and they find like what to do now, then the penultimate thing in the philosophy, in the darshan, is Bhagavad Gita. And ultimate is something beyond, I will discuss later on. That's called Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so great philosophers, great thinkers, politicians, scientists had actually read this Bhagavad Gita and had given great remarks about this Bhagavad Gita. So we know Einstein, we know Newton, we know Ramanuja, we know like philosophers like Thoreau, like even Mahatma Gandhi had given a review upon Bhagavad Gita. That Mahatma Gandhi tells that in my life, many times I see there is no even a single ray of hope. Then I turn to Bhagavad Gita. And as I start reading Bhagavad Gita, I find very rejuvenated source of inspiration coming from Bhagavad Gita. And again, I find, okay, the way, okay, this is the way to go. So Bhagavad Gita is such a rudder for a ship which is actually thrown into a ocean which is not able to see the shore. So Bhagavad Gita is acting like that for the humanity forever. Okay, the Bhagavad Gita is still relevant. Bhagavad Gita is still relevant for the humankind, even though it has been compiled 5,000 years before. 5,000 years before the whole social political system of India and world was different than now. But still, Bhagavad Gita is as relevant as it was there 5,000 years before. How it is so? Because all those pertinent questions had been asked by Arjuna to Krishna. All those important questions, what is still the great issue in the life of humankind, has been already been asked by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita to Krishna. And this Bhagavad Gita is actually coming in the conversation mode, and in this way it's very lucidly understood and very, very relevant. Okay. Also, Bhagavad Gita is an invaluable gift to humanity because it gives eternal shelter. This is not a sectarian book. I mean, it's not a. You cannot just seal it and just tell it that this is the book for this religion or this type of creed or nothing like that. Nothing sort of. Why? Because this is actually the manual for humanity. Manual for the not only humanity but the manual for the living entities in general. And anybody who finds suppose in the summer season, sometimes in India, the people, they go by walk from one place to another. Many times what happens, they start getting sweat and they start getting exasperated. Then they find a shelter, they seek for the shelter. And while going ahead, they find one big banyan tree. So they go and they take shelter there. And very cool, soothing breeze that's moving around. So in that way, what happens is all tiredness that's go away. Similarly, this Bhagavad Gita is actually the shelter for all humanity. It's not just for a particular sect or particular type of people, but it's actually for everyone. So this Bhagavad Gita is eternal shelter for humanity. For any question you find, you will get the answer here. Or whatever complexities what we have in our mind, that automatically gets very easily solved when we actually take to Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is like a box, a treasure chest. So this Bhagavad Gita is like a treasure chest in which inside there is a very great powerful treasure. And this analogy, what I'm going to discuss with you all, has been given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad, okay, in which he said, so this is the treasure chest, treasure box, in which the basement of the treasure box is called Karma Yoga. There are 3 types of yoga discussed in Bhagavad Gita, okay. So before I go ahead, I really pray and really request to all of you, please write down everything, whatever worthy to be noted down. Please sit with notebook and pen, and you find like these are the things which I can, or personally I can put in my life. So please write down that. And this Bhagavad Gita will be not just a just one-way speech, but rather it will be a very wonderfully interactive session. There will be quizzes to all of you. I will be asking seldom the responses from you, and You have like full freedom to ask any question, okay, but at the end of the session. Okay, so of course, for your information, again telling you, if you do your attending this sessions regularly, at least 70% attendance as well as 70% in quizzes, then you will be able to have a certificate also conferred by International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Mayapur. Okay, so this Bhagavad Gita, what we're discussing, is having three sections. The first section is called Karma Yoga, second section is called Bhakti Yoga, and third section is called Jnana Yoga. So it is just like a treasure chest in which the basement is called Karma Yoga, upper covering of that chest is Jnana Yoga, and inside is the real illuminating civil, illuminating, that's called, in Hindi or in Sanskrit, it's called Ratna Chudamani. This is the topmost of the topmost, most valuable treasure of the whole Vedanta or Vedas. That is called Bhakti Yoga, which is there inside the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so this whole Bhagavad Gita is having three sections, and every section, every yoga, what's called Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, is having given six chapters. Okay, so altogether it makes how many chapters? It makes 6 plus 6 plus 6, 18 chapters. So Bhagavad Gita is having 18 chapters. Okay, so in 18 chapters, the first 6 chapters are called Karma Yoga. In middle 6 chapter is called Bhakti Yoga, and last 6 chapters are called Jnana Yoga. Once again, first 6 Karma Yoga, middle 6 Bhakti Yoga, and last 6 is called Jnana Yoga. So it is just like a treasure chest, or else it is just like a buns, like 2 buns. Many times people, they eat this, 2 buns are there, in between there is stuffing, right? And they eat, they pounce about it, they like it, but the stuffing is main. So in the whole Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga is actually the most celebrated section of the whole Gita. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Of course, everybody wants this particular thing, that's called happiness. Happiness is a word, have many different types of meanings. Okay, happiness, sometimes people say sukh, in Hindi they say sukh, and happiness means, sometimes they say ananda. Happiness means, somebody may say that peacefulness or shanti or something like that. But the real happiness, which is called happiness of the self, which everybody is actually seeking for. Everybody is seeking for happiness only. From our childhood till now, like I myself, 30-year-old man. So from very beginning of my childhood, I had been always given this allurement that you do this, then you'll get happiness. You'll do that, then you'll get happiness. Okay, let me just rearrange this. Yeah. And like this, but we had been just passing, like in childhood, we had been told that no, you can go ahead with your schooling, you do nice studies in your school, then you'll get good place, you have a good college to enter, then in matriculation, higher secondary, then we had been told you have to study very hard, then you will enter into a very nice college, then your life will be settled. So we actually did that. We had very, like, day and night used to study. And after that, we entered into a college where we're supposed to be happy. But there was ragging, then this and that, so many things. But happiness is something which is always going ahead. Like there is always always a place where you find happiness. But when we enter there, then there is no happiness. So that is actually the play of happiness and humankind. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita is the place where you can find that. Okay, Bhagavad Gita is the place that there you can find it, because happiness is nothing but outcome of relationship. So this Bhagavad Gita gives you a super form of relationship, and relationship with a person which is supremely happy and supremely powerful, supremely wisdomful, and everything. So this Bhagavad Gita is also going to get to you closer to the Supreme Godhead. Okay, so I don't know what your conception of to be Supreme Godhead to be, but this will take you very closer to that personality. Okay, so again, congratulating you that you are on the right path, understanding Bhagavad Gita in this course. Okay, and this course will also be for three classes of people: those who are the first novice into this, those are the first timers in Bhagavad Gita. For them, it will be a very crisp and elementary vision for whole Bhagavad Gita, like in whole Bhagavad Gita, what has been actually discussed, and you will be able to at least understand it, even though you have not read it before. What are the things, what are the stuff mentioned there? All things you will be able to understand it after completion of this course. Okay, for those who has read it but not systematically one by one sloka after another, one chapter after another, for them it's like, you know, assembling those all those different sections. It is like, you know, solving that jumble words. So it's like that. For those, like sometimes they have read Karpanya Doshupahata Swavada, sometimes they read Karmanyavadikaraste. But after going through this course, that person will be able to make sense of everything. Okay, so, and third, for those who are veterans, those who actually have read Bhagavad Gita many times, I mean quite a few times, maybe once, for them this Bhagavad Gita course will be a very great inspiration to imbibe the teachings and lessons of Bhagavad Gita into their life, and also to propagate this Bhagavad Gita for the betterment of their fellow planetites and the fellow society, like wherever you are, if you're in college, with your colleagues, then if you're with a family and with your neighbors, or everyone you feel like to whom you care for. Okay, so now let's go ahead. We are just onset of chapter 1 today. Okay, session 1, chapter 1, we have this 4 sections. Okay, the chapter 1 is divided into 4 sections. So the first section of chapter first is having what's called setting the scene. Okay, we will be set the scene for whole Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so first sloka of the first chapter, the 11th sloka, is called setting the scene. Okay, then we have second section 1.12 means 12th chapter, 12th sloka to 20th sloka. We have all auspicious Krishna. Okay, Krishna, how he is source of all auspiciousness, right? So that will be seeing from 12th to 20th. Then third we have 21st to 27th sloka. Lord loves his devotees. So this is a very special topic that's called in Hindi or Sanskrit, it's called Bhakta Vatsala Bhagavan. Okay, so next we'll have 28th till 46th, problems of life, very relevant section, and the last section of today's discussion. Okay, so the whole Bhagavad Gita is based upon a true story of the of India that actually took place around 5,000 through 200 years before. Okay, so 5,200 years before, the situation of whole planetary socio-political system was like in turmoil, or in, like, you can say, to be like in a critical position. There were changes everywhere. There was fights, there was diplomacy, there were politics, there was crimes, there were there was wars like anything. The whole planet was into critical position. So that was 5,000 years before, in which you can say it was the world's biggest, world's worstest fight. The battle took place. Second World War, First World War is nothing in front of that battle. That's called Battle of Kurukshetra. That took place. And there was fight between two sections of the same family. One section whose, they were called Pandavas. They were sons of Pandus. And another section of the family were Kauravas. They were sons of Dhritarashtra. Okay, and this Dhritarashtra and Pandu were the brothers only. Because Pandu was, he was a younger brother of Dhritarashtra, but because Dhritarashtra was blind, he actually had to give this post of kingship to Pandu. Okay, but somehow or other, that Pandu died untimely, and because of that, because there was no one higher on the planet to sit upon the Hastinapur's throne, Dhritarashtra has to be appointed. But Dhritarashtra, he thought that because I am now on the behalf of Pandu on the throne, so my sons should only, or my sons must sit upon the throne of Hastinapur. And then he started playing diplomatic games against the sons of Pandus. They were such a pious and such a generous dharmic sons of Pandus. So he started playing diplomatic games against them. There are so many different types of plots were made to kill these 5 sons of Pandus. They were put into, I request just wait. Okay, so so there are sons of Pandu have been put in so many great difficulties. Like they had been put in a place, and there was called the house of Laksha Griha. And the lakhs were like used for just to make that whole building, and they have been told to be there for some few nights, and they put on fire that whole lakh building. Then the poisons were fed to them. Then there was a vicious game of like this called dice game, in which they have been cheated thoroughly, and their wife, the Draupadi, was actually disturbed. So like this, there are so many different types of sadyantra, what's called diplomacy, were played. Dhritarashtra played against Pandavas, and ultimately it came to asking for few villages to rule, because they were Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas' dharma is to rule. Okay, so they cannot just go and just maintain themselves by begging, but they have to rule. So they asked that we need just five villages. So if you can give us, we will be happy. But this person, Duryodhan, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, told that we cannot give even a single land which actually stands, or upon which you can stand and needle. This is the prophetic type of statement he told. So war was inevitable, and war has been set by both of the parties. Okay, so now this is the situation. Dhritarashtra is sitting in the Hastinapur, and his secretary, his name is Sanjaya. He has got a divine vision by the mercy of Ved Vyas, his spiritual master, Guru. By that he can see the things what's happening maybe miles and miles away, very clearly. Just like we had television, then now we have live show happening. For seeing us live, we require so many things. Like now we are here sitting in front of laptop, and through Zoom, we are able to see each other, right? This is live through technology. Or else we required Facebook or Zoom, YouTube and different stuff. But this Sanjay didn't require anything. He was able to just meditate and see what's happening at a particular place. So this is called Divichaksu, what he has got, started by Ved Vyas. Okay, so Dhritarashtra is now asking his secretary, Sanjay, you are able to see everything, what's happening in battlefield of Kurukshetra, please let me know. That's called Aankho Dekha Hal. That's usually the people in India, they say, the new channel. So what is happening? Please tell me in Kurukshetra, what is happening? So the very famous sloka, the first sloka of the this Bhagavad Gita. So I will try to recite in front of you all. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakaha pandavas chaiva kimma kurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Okay, so Dhritarashtra is asking, what did they do? my sons and sons of Pandu, they have assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So in this sloka, we can just let me just check it out, the chats. Okay. Okay, nothing so important. So there are two people in this section. We have two persons, two D's. One D for Dhritarashtra, another D for Duryodhan. Mindset very clearly mentioned. Okay, so what are the D's doing here out here? So let us see Dhritarashtra. So this Dhritarashtra is having doubt, having fear, and he is partial as well. Okay, so Dhritarashtra, what is telling that, oh Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? So he is doubtful. Why he is doubtful? That my sons, the Kauravas, are first class irreligious people, irreligious sons, and they are assembled in a place called Dharmakshetra. Dharmakshetra means the place where dharmas are performed. Great sacrifices are done. Where the people, those who are dharmic, they prosper in Dharmakshetra. But my sons are first class adharmic, and they must, I think, he was doubtful that they must get opposite result there. They will not flourish there. They may get defeated there. So this was a doubt. Then he was fearful. That's what we saw. So the first word is telling Dharmakshetra, because he was having such a great doubt. In Vedas, it is told there are 4 yugas, and in 4 yugas, there are 4 different kshetras, or the area, the place which is celebrated in that particular yuga. So Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. There are 4 yugas. In this way, the whole time cycle keeps rotating like this. So in Satya Yuga, the most celebrated pious place or the pious area is called Pushkara Kshetra. Okay. And second, in Treta Yuga, the most sacred place or most celebrated pious place is called, what is called, okay, that's called Kurukshetra. Okay, in Treta Yuga, that's called Kurukshetra. And then Dwapar Yuga, that's called Naimisharanya, that's which is there in the UP. And in the Kali Yuga, now that place is called Navadvipa. Okay, so the land of Dharma, in which Dhritarashtra's sons had been assembled, and because of that, the influence of that Dharmakshetra, he is doubtful. Okay, so what will be the result of this fight? Okay, so we have a life lesson. So in this whole Bhagavad Gita course, we'll have a section discussed, and after that we have a life lesson. What we should understand, what we should learn, what we should imbibe by this particular section, that is actually put as a life lesson. Okay. So life lesson in this is what? If you protect dharma, then dharma will in turn protect you. This Pandavas whole life, they were perfectly dharmic. They never did any activity which is actually adharma, which is irreligious. So in this way, they're quite confident that they are going to go victorious. And in this way, they were actually fully confident that this time, this Dhritarashtra's, I mean, their allies, Duryodhana and their allies are going to get defeat. Okay. So, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. If we'll protect dharma, then dharma will in turn protect us. Okay. So, second, he was fearful because of undue attachment. This person, Dhritarashtra, had 100 sons, and all 100 sons except one, everyone were first-class irreligious personality. They were doing all nonsense things. But this Dhritarashtra, the father and the emperor of the whole India, not India, rather whole Bharatavarsha, he never used to tell anything wrong because he was attached to his irreligious sons. He never used to say that, useless fellow, you are doing wrong, you should stop it. No, because he was attached. Because that if he will say something, then the father and the son may revolt. There will be droha. So because of that, he was fearful that what will happen to my sons, my irreligious sons. So undue attachment. So similarly, we have life lesson in this connection that undue attachment brings constant fear. Okay, undue attachment brings constant fear. Okay, so we have also in our life. So I request all of you that all those questions what you had, you can keep with you in the park, and we can take the questions in the group, in the WhatsApp or the mail. You can share your questions with us, and there will be also a Google form sent to you in which you can put your questions, and we'll be very happy to answer those all questions. Okay, so undue attachment brings constant fear. Okay, so now Dhritarashtra is partial. Dhritarashtra is partial here. How he is partial? He is telling my sons and Pandu's sons, Pandavas. But for the king, all his, I mean, the people those who are staying in his kingdom, all his what's called prajas, they are equally seen by a king. Those who are actually his subjects, for a king, all the subjects like a son. But the partial king, like Dhritarashtra, he says, what my sons, Mamaka? Then he said, Pandavas Chaiva. What happened to my sons and the sons of Pandu? Okay, so their partiality is seen. For a leader, for a perfect leader, one has to go beyond partiality. So in this way, we can learn that this partiality, unless this partiality has been removed, the person cannot be a perfect leader. Okay, so now let's go ahead to second D. This second D is Duryodhan. Okay, now the thing is start from the second sloka. So the whole army of the whole Bharatvarsh, the whole planet are assembled together. Someone has joined Duryodhan, someone has joined Arjun, and someone has joined Pandavas. There is no in between, of course. So some people, some kings have joined Duryodhan party, some kings have joined Pandavas party or Arjuna's party. Okay, so first this Duryodhan is coming out and telling his spiritual master or guru Dronacharya. He's telling them, my dear guru, my dear spiritual master, see, my army, such a great army. Army of Duryodhan was at least 10 times more than army of Pandavas. So he was very boastful of his army. He was telling that my army is such a great, all the great warriors, Maharathis, Atirathis, all are assembled here for me. And in this way, he was very boastful in front of his teacher, Drona. And after that, he started being doubting to his own people, like Bhishma Deva and others, because he was thinking that this Bhishma Deva and this Drona, they are having very soft corner for these Pandavas. So Bhishma Deva was there, and in this way he was trying to please Drona, but at the same time he started becoming diplomatic, and he started telling that yes, this is true that we have great power, but we can be only victorious when we have the support of Bhishma. Okay, so he's Duryodhana's grandfather. So everybody should protect Bhishma because our victory depends upon Bhishma. Okay, so just to tell others that you are also important, he's telling that all of you must protect Bhishma because Bhishma will not be able to do alone. Okay, so like this, the diplomacy of Duryodhana was revealed there. Okay, so the lesson is for all of us is by bragging, when somebody brags about his own things, means he actually is showing his own weakness. So it's like usually people say it that those who really work, they work silently. They won't brag for themselves. Okay, so but Duryodhana is here bragging for himself. He's telling that I am such a great personality, my army is such a great, and in this way he is doubting to his own people. So he started doubting to his own people, in his own army men, Drona, Bhishma, and all others, great warriors. So when we start doubting in our own close relationships, then what happens? That doubt breaks the relation. That doubts can break the relation or weaken the relation. So in this situation, Duryodhana started doubting upon Bhishma and Drona that whether they will be able to fight nicely with Pandavas, their own grandchildren. So in this way, Bhishma was okay. He was very much, uh, very much stressed, or he was annoyed by Duryodhana. He was annoyed by Duryodhana's this diplomatic conversations. So when he was annoyed, he didn't say to him, Duryodhana, anything. He immediately took up his counsel, the Shankha, counsel he took up, and he started blowing the counsel very loudly. Most of you, if you have seen the blowing of counsels, could be very loud. So Bhishma Dev, he was like, he was in the situation that he was understanding this person, Duryodhana, is just speaking diplomatically. Then he didn't heard about him. And without telling him, he just took up his counsel and he started blowing very, very loudly. Okay. So as Bhishma blowed the counsel and all other allies of Duryodhana, they all started blowing the counsel to herald the victory of Pandavas. And from this side, all the Pandavas, specifically in this side, there was supreme godhead Krishna also. He also blowed his counsel. So Krishna's counsel name is called Panchajanya. Very, very powerful counsel. So all of them, they've blown this counsel. So the sloka is very, very important. I'll recite for all of you. Saghosho dhartarashtranam hridayani vyadarayata nabhascha prithvim chaiva tumulo abhyanu nadayan. So when these personalities like Pandavas, Bhima, Arjuna, Yudhishthira, Nakula, Sahadev, Krishna, all of them, they started blowing their counsel. The sound was uproarious. The blowing of the different counsel became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the heart of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So it's not like only Pandavas, they blown the counsels. Rather, Dhritarashtra party, Duryodhana's party also, they blown the counsels. But their blowing had no effect into the hearts of Pandavas. But when the Pandavas, they blown counsels, the hearts of this Kauravas were shattered. So this was the condition. So this gives the 5 different symptoms of victory before the battle takes place. Okay, there are the 5 signs of victory for Pandavas. There are the 5 signs for victory for the Pandavas. What first is called blowing of divine counsels like Panchajanya, Devadatta. Then second is called personal presence of Lord Krishna. Third is called Hanumanji on the flag of Arjuna, top of the flag of the Arjuna, right? So there was presence of Hanuman also. Presence of goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And 5th one is called presence of heavenly chariot bestowed by Agni Deva. So today we are now in the second section of today's discussion, auspiciousness personified Krishna. Okay. So blowing of counsels. They are the counsels what they were blown. Krishna blown the counsel. Krishna's counsel name is Panchajanya. Okay. So this divine counsel was blown by Krishna. Arjuna's counsel name is Devadatta. Yudhishthira is Ananta Vijaya, Bhimaji is Pandra, Nakuli is Sughosha, and Sahadev Manipushpaka. And when they blown this all together, the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons were shattered. And they started feeling fearful. So this is the first symptom that's over. Second is called Krishna's presence. Okay. So Krishna, now it comes in the history of the world, is a special personality, very easily and to be understood, as well as many times people, they misunderstand also Krishna. So, this is the story before the this onset of battle. The Kurukshetra war started. Okay, so this both Arjuna and Duryodhana were just going everywhere, collecting all those different kings into their own parties. So the greatest power then was Krishna and his army. Anybody is favored by Krishna and his army, they will be victorious, there will not be any doubt. So Duryodhana also thought that I will bring Krishna and his army in my side. Okay, so Duryodhana went because Duryodhana and Krishna, Arjuna, they were all relatives. Okay, So Duryodhana first went to Dwarka and just sat just behind Krishna's bed. And Krishna that time he was taking just a nap. Okay, he was just taking a rest. So he sat just behind his pillow. Okay, and he was waiting that when Krishna will get up, then I will propose him that please join my party. Okay, and just few hours, what happened? Not few hours, few minutes. Arjuna also came there to ask for the favor. Okay, but Arjuna he sat just behind Krishna's feet. Okay, just in front of Krishna, just behind Krishna's feet. So both of them were there, seeing each other. Okay, both of them had come. So after Arjuna came, Krishna just broke his yoga nidra, and he's seeing Arjuna is right in front of him. So when he saw that Arjuna is right in front of him, they asked him, "Oh, Arjuna, you are here in Dwarka. What made you to come here? Please tell." Then Arjuna told that we have come here to ask your favor for oncoming battle which is going to take place in Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra. So Krishna told, "Yeah, I'm there." But he's saying back, "Okay, back, who is there?" "Oh, Duryodhana, you also come? Okay, that's great. Greeting to you. You have come here. So tell me the news of all places. Everything is, oh, everyone is fine." So they had a little discussion. Then they came to the point that, see, we need you. Both of them are telling we need you, right? But which side you'll go? So Krishna told that, see, I divide myself into two. One side I will be there, another side my undefeatable, which cannot be defeated by even great demigods or the gods, different great devatas. That army I will give another side. So you have the choice. One side I will go, another side my army will go. Narayani Sena. Okay. So now you decide. Arjuna is younger, so Arjuna will decide first. So Arjuna told Krishna, I am happy with you. But Krishna told, make sure, Arjuna, I am going with you, but I will not take a weapon even. No, I will not fight. So still Arjuna told, no problem, Arjuna, Krishna, you just be with me. Okay. And then the next choice comes of what is called Narayani Sena. Duryodhana was feeling very happy. See this foolish Arjuna. He is taking a useless person with, like, Krishna is of course of great use. He was according to his calculation, but he was thinking that the person is taking who will not take up even a weapon. What is the use of it? So it's good. This is no foolish guy. Let him take Krishna. No, without weapon. But I will take Narayani Sena. Then Krishna asked, so now you have with Narayani Sena. Duryodhana inwardly something, but outwardly, okay, what to do, Krishna? I have just to take this only. I don't have any other option. Okay. So, but inside he was quite very happy. So in this way we see, but Krishna's presence itself is victorious. That's actually the last sloka of the 18th chapter, of the last sloka of the whole Bhagavad Gita. It's told, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhuti Dhuvani Tirmatirmama. Meaning of this is, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will be also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That's my opinion. This is what Sanjay says. Okay, so a life lesson for all of us here is, if you have the contact, if we have the favor of Hari or Krishna, then you will be undefeatable by the whole world. Okay, so it's very famous proverb, Rakhe Krishna mare Krishna rakhe ke. If Krishna want to kill you, no one can protect you. If Krishna want to protect you, no power in the whole universe can kill you. Okay, so this is the life lesson for all of us. Now let's go to the third symptom of victory, Hanuman's presence. Hanuman's heart-shattering roar. Okay, so Hanuman is still there on the planet, for your information. So when Bhima was there, actually Bhima and all the Pandavas, they were actually roaming in the jungle in the pursuit of different boons, and just because they had to finish their 14 years of exile, they're roaming around here and there. So once Bhima also met Hanumanji in near Himalaya, and there Hanumanji told that, so my dear friend, my dear brother, very soon there is going to be a very big war going to take place, okay, and on the face of earth, and I will be there with you. Okay, and when I will roar, specifically when Hanumanji was roaring in the battlefield of Ravana and Ram, some lakhs of years before. Then just by his roar only, so many people, so many demons and rakshasas, they had heart attack and they used to die. Okay, so I will also be there with you, and I will be also roaring like that. And in this way, I will have my service done to my supreme God, Lord Ramachandra. Because here in the Pandava side, we have Ramachandra, Krishna, Ramachandra is same. Because Krishna is there, then Sita must be also there. Ram is there, then Sita must be there. Means Krishna is there, Lakshmi is also there, and Hanuman is also there. So it's like a very powerful combination. So all those people of different pastimes have also assembled in this battle. Okay, so the life lesson is that when we are in Krishna's side, dharma means when we are in dharma's side, then all his associates, father of dharma is Krishna. Okay, all his associates also helps us. Okay, in our life. Okay, so now it's called Lakshmi's presence. Here Arjuna tells Krishna that Krishna, you are Madhava. Madhava means Ma means mother, and Dhava means the person who holds the mother. Okay, so Narayana is also called Madhava. Krishna is also called Madhava, who holds Lakshmi. Okay, so the Lakshmi means the goddesses of fortune. Okay, so fortune stays with the people with whom always there is Krishna. Okay, so Krishna and Lakshmi always, Narayana and Lakshmi always remains together. Here we see that Lakshmi is also favoring whom? The Pandavas. Okay, so now Mother Lakshmi presents a divine chariot. Now it comes to divine chariot given by Agni Dev. Okay, so a divine chariot were given to Pandavas, specifically Arjun, when he had a very big, a tour in which he had to actually burn the whole Khandoprastha, that jungle. Okay, Indraprasth then it was made, and Agni was quite very happy with Pandavas, specifically Arjun, and he bestowed upon Pandavas a very powerful chariot. Okay, that's divine chariot. Whoever sits upon that chariot and fights, he will be victorious. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Krishna's Bhakta Vatsala. Okay, Krishna is defeated by his devotees only. Section 3. This is also a very wonderful section. We are just in the penultimate section of our today's discussion. So Krishna is called Bhakta Vatsala Bhagavan. Okay, so how it is so which is discussed in this section. So we see here Krishna is actually driving the chariot of Arjuna. Okay, this Krishna who is driving the chariot of Arjuna, who is not just ordinary person, but out of his great compassion and friendship with his friend Arjuna, he had become the charioteer of his friend. Okay, so charioteer means like, nowadays if you have a car, then you keep a driver, okay, to ride the driver. So seldom you do that. Now you tell the driver, hey, Mohan, you just go backside, I will drive today. Nobody tells like that, because driver is driver, he will drive the car. So it never happens that the owner of the car becomes the driver and driver sits back. But here we can see the Supreme Lord is actually defeated by the love of his devotee Arjuna. Okay, this is actually his great compassion and mercy upon his devotees. That he tells Arjuna that don't worry, Arjuna, I will be there with you as a charioteer. I will serve you. Okay, so this is called Bhakta Vatsala Bhagavan. It means Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, is having a great compassion for all living creatures, but specifically is very much favorable to his devotees. So when there was a Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthir Maharaj, then all the different family members of Kauravas and Pandavas, they had been given different services. Okay, so Rajasuya sacrifice, a very big sacrifice is going to take place. So like Bhima got the service of feeding the guests. Karna got the service of donating to the guests. Like different like Duryodhana got the service of collecting the funds, like that. So like in our home also there is marriage ceremonies, different sections, different departments are actually given to different people. Somebody takes the shooting the events, somebody takes to the taking care of marriages, the events takes place, somebody takes care of the guests, somebody takes care for the Pandit ji who is going to actually do this yagyas and different stuff. So like this, then Krishna, what he took the position, the service of receiving all the guests and taking their chappals, washing them nicely, keeping the stack, and after that, washing their feet. And when they have taken meal, after that, collecting all those plates and throwing at particular place. So this was the most humble service he took. Okay, so it's not like God means very I mean like tyrannic people, and nobody can talk with him. No, he's most loving and friendly personality. Okay, so he's called Bhakta Vatsala. So now let's go ahead. The life lesson for all of us in this section is, if you want unshakable and unbreakable relationship, which is basis of unceasing happiness, get in relationship with Lord Krishna. Okay. So just now, just few minutes before, we were discussing the happiness, basis of happiness is relationships. Okay, many relationships we might have in our life, but those all relationships have a time when it starts and a time when it ends. No relationship is eternal, but a relationship with a living entity and a supreme God is eternal. Okay, so that relationship is actually can be made with supreme God and Lord Krishna also, which is actually eternal. From his side, he know that all living entities are his sons. Okay, but from our side, we might have got forgotten even. Okay, so that relationship could be the unceasing basis of happiness. Okay, so if we really want to have a happiness, eternal happiness, then we must switch to the relationship with Lord Krishna. It doesn't mean that you need to shatter all those different relationships from your family men, but we must also have a relationship with Supreme Godhead. Okay, so this is the life lesson, very important life lesson for all of us. Now let's go ahead to the second section, hopefully. So Arjuna's lamentation. Arjuna, seeing relatives in a battle, gets into lamentation. Okay, so Arjuna starts lamenting. When there was heralding of victory, then Arjuna is telling Krishna, please take my chariot between both of the armies. I want to see who are there actually assembled to fight with me. So then when you see that his all relatives are there, his sasurs, his salas, his fathers, grandfathers, uncles, his sons, his grandsons, everybody assembled to fight and shatter their bodies, shed their blood and kill each other. So this is the condition in which Arjuna, being very soft-hearted, he started feeling very difficult situation. He started exasperating, tears started coming, whole horripilation happening in his all limbs different, and his Gandiva, the bow, is actually somehow slipping from his hand. So this is the condition for Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna starts lamenting. Okay, so why he starts lamenting? He starts thinking everyone to his own relative, even though they were adharmic, even though they were religious, because he was soft-hearted guy. Arjuna was a devotee of Krishna, that's why he was a little soft-hearted, and he started feeling that these all people in just few days, they are going to be killed and mercilessly killed. So in this condition, he was quite attached with those people, even though they were irreligious, even though they had actually taken the part of adharma. He was quite attached with their bodies. Okay, so the life lesson for all of us here is mundane relationships could be the cause of miseries, lamentation too. Yeah, it happens many times. It happens, and many times the people get into even before marriage they get into different relationships. So after that, what happens? So they're always anxious to what's going to happen. She might be talking with someone else, or he might be talking with someone else, or there could be, so always there is constant fear, constant miseries. Lamentation starts taking place when we are actually into mundane relationships. Okay, so problems of life. Now we are at the last section of today's discussion, very important. Okay, so here this personality Arjuna is person who is a person of great caliber. He's the person who has defeated Indra, the king of heaven. He's the person who is defeated, even exactly not even exactly defeated, but he actually pleased Lord Shiva. He is the person of caliber. but this person is also facing problem in life, such a problem that his whole body is like shivering. He is getting horripilation. His hairs are standing on end. His gandiva, the bow, is slipping from his hand. So this is the condition of this great accomplished personality. So no matter how greatly accomplished personality we are, the problems of life are for everyone equally given. Okay. So problems of life are equally for everyone. These are the things happening with Arjuna. We can see body parts quivering, hair standing on end, gandiva slipping, skin burning, sweating. So this is all the symptoms of what? Is Arjuna is in great stress. Arjuna is in great stress, and he's telling to his friend Krishna that Krishna, this is my condition. I'm not able to stand nicely in front of this. All of my relatives are assembled here to just get killed and to kill themselves. So what to do? Please tell me. So now this is the first stress management seminar going to get revealed. You can understand. So Bhagavad Gita is also a very wonderful tool. I mean, it cannot be told to be a tool, but Bhagavad Gita is a permanent stress remedy. Okay, anybody feel any type of stress, just go and switch to Bhagavad Gita. 100%, 200% sure you'll get the answer, and all your stress will be shattered. Just like when the sun arises in the mornings, many times in the cold season, when there are all everywhere there is smog and fogs, automatically all the fogs just get dissipated by the influence of sun. Similarly, when Bhagavad Gita, somebody switches to Bhagavad Gita, all the different types of sediments, different types of stress, automatically they get sublimated. Okay, so now we are here into three flames of miseries of life. Okay, what are the three flames of miseries of life? So usually everybody have these three flames of miseries in their life. The first flame is called adhyatmic klesha. Problem because of our own body and mind. Okay, problem because of our own body and mind. Sometimes we are okay, sometimes we are not so good. Mind is headache, there is some, and then there is maybe we are not feeling good, and there are different types of things. We are frustrated, we are depressed, somebody has broken our heart, or these all things. So these are the problems because of our own body and mind. This is called adhyatmic klesha. Okay, this is the first flames of miseries of life. Okay, so now there comes second flame. Okay, the second flame is adi bhautika, problem because of other living entities, other people. Somebody has stolen our purse, somebody has stolen our mobile. There was some terrorist attack. There could be many things. There could be many different types of combinations and permutations by which people can get a problem from other living entities. Like now, suppose we have a corona disease in which there is a invisible coronavirus, which hardly people are able to see, but it's affecting in masses. So this is called adi bhautik klesha, problems due to other entities. Similarly, we have a third flame of problems, miseries of life, and this is called problems because of natural disasters. And in Sanskrit, it is called adi daivik klesha. Okay, like there is tsunami, there are tornado, there are earthquake, and so it's common to everyone. Nobody can say that I'm quite now very much well accomplished in these all things. Now I can just manage it, and I can be cool. I can be always happy. No, these all three things has to come. Okay, so these three things are inevitable. So these all things are coming, so we can find out which one Arjuna is actually influenced by. That's first one, adi atmik klesha, which because of his own body and mind. Okay, so now Arjuna gives reasons that he will not able to fight. He tells that Krishna, these all my family men, I don't want to fight with them. If I will kill them, so what will happen to my whole dynasty? What will happen to them? I just feel very great compassion for them. So he is very compassionate for the relatives. The first reason he tells. Okay, so he gives his own logic. Okay, so he gives his own logic. The second logic that he gives, there will not be any enjoyment either. He tells that if I fight with them, suppose I get victorious, I go victorious, so the people with whom I will enjoy the kingdom, the people who will be appreciating me, that, oh, Pandavas, you are so great. No, you people are so great. Who will be there? Everybody will be killed. So if we become victorious also, then there is no enjoyment either. If we come, if I get killed, then of course there is no enjoyment after getting killed. What is there? And we will be killing so many people. So then third comes what's called fear of sin. He thinks that by fighting in the battlefield, there will be sin. That's called papa, killing so many people. So there will be sin. So I just don't want to go into this vicious cycle of killing each other and getting accumulated so much of sin. The fourth thing, what he tells the destruction of family tradition. He tells that so many different big our seniors, the Bhishma Pitama, Dronacharya, and all great our family personality, they will be killed. Then what will happen to our generation? What will happen to our sons? What will happen to our daughters? What will happen to our generation? They will all get misguided. They will not get a proper guidance. In this way, what will happen? The whole family project, the family tradition will suffer. And in this way, family tradition will suffer, and because of that, people will not give oblation into the fire, and there will be fall down for the ancestors also from the heavens. So like this, he gives this analogy, he gives this description that because of this, I cannot fight. At last, he said, I don't know what to do. Indecisiveness. Krishna, I'm not able to figure out what should be done or what should not be done. So these are the now 5 different reasons because of which Arjuna tells that I don't want to fight. So now a life lesson for all of us is there. Bhagavad Gita, the most effective, inspirational, and decision-making manual. If you feel like you have difficulty in making decisions, decision capability is less, then switch to Bhagavad Gita. You'll have clarity in your life, which decision to be taken. If you are sticking to Bhagavad Gita, many times it happens that even though you have taken decisions that could be wrong, that in turn becomes right. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita is the most effective, inspirational, and decision-making manual. Okay, so now we are at the end of our today's discussion. Now I'm just going to reveal in front of you what we discussed throughout the whole chapter. That's called summary. So first we discussed setting the scene from first sloka to 11th sloka, in which we saw the 2 persons' mindset, Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. In which Dhritarashtra, we saw that Dhritarashtra was doubtful, fearful, and he was partial. Okay, so 3 mentalities of Dhritarashtra and mentalities of Duryodhana. We saw Duryodhana was a diplomatic, Duryodhana was boastful he was bragging about his own army, which was showing in turn his own weakness. Okay, so now let's go ahead. All auspicious Krishna. So in second section we saw Krishna is all auspicious. How? We saw that because of his mere presence, there is a presence of goddesses of fortune there, and just by his mere presence, he can actually usher the fortune, he can usher the victory, he can usher the great knowledge, dharma, into the party in which he is there. Okay, so all auspicious Krishna. 5 signs of victory is found because of presence of Krishna that we saw. Then also we saw Krishna is defeated by his devotee. Krishna is at first hand is never defeated by anyone, but his loving devotees can even defeat him. That's why we saw here Arjuna, even though he was just any other living entity like us, he actually defeated him by making him his own charioteer. Okay, and there are many other examples in which it is shown that how he is actually defeated by his devotees. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Problems of life, which is actually inevitable to anyone and everyone. Nobody can escape it. Even great powerful personality like Indra, Arjuna can also not go beyond it. Okay, this is called problems of life, in which we saw there are 3 flames of life, problems of life. 3 flames means which burns the people. Okay, problem because of our own body and mind. Nowadays, people are heard like news are coming that somebody hanged himself, somebody committed suicide. Why these all things are happening? Because of their own body and mind. Then we saw the second flame is called because of other living entities, and third flame is called because of the natural disasters. Okay, the 3 flames are common to everyone, and here we see because of own body and mind, Arjuna is in difficulty. Even such an accomplished archer of the whole universe, he is also in the problem. Okay, so he says 5 reasons of not fighting. Okay, and he ends with indecision. So in this way, today we discussed about the whole observing of army, the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so hopefully you had taken a lot of notes and inspiration to continue on with us for the whole 18th chapter, and you will be getting quizzes, very powerful, wonderful quizzes. And please go ahead, please attempt those all quizzes, and journey will be really very thrilling next 4 months. Okay, thank you so much, all of you, for listening to this fellow for 1 hour and more, very patiently. And thank you so much, all of you. And I wish and pray that life take a very wonderful, blissful turn in all of your lives. And in this way, I stop today for the next week. Okay, thank you so much. If you have any question, any query, you can send to us. I'm just writing the email ID for all of you. So this email ID you can use, and you can send your questions. This is called nitaichandra.jps@gmail.com. So just let me write it down. Yeah. So everyone. Okay. So this is my email ID. If you feel like you have any question to discuss, you can just go ahead with this particular mail, and you can just send me the mail, any pertinent question. If you have, I'll be very happy to answer them. Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, for today's very wonderful session with you all. Thank you.